I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this, but here I am. My name's Mark, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 8 years. At first, everything seemed fine, good jobs, a nice house, 2 kids, the usual. But lately, I'd been feeling like something was off. Small things, you know. She'd be late for dinner more often. Sometimes she'd dodge questions about where she'd been, and her phone was always glued to her hand, even more than usual. I figured it was work stress or maybe her being bitchy about stuff, but deep down, I started feeling paranoid. It all got worse when I noticed her mood swings. One day, she snapped at me over nothing, then turned around and cried in the bathroom for an hour. I asked her what was wrong, but she just told me I was imagining things, that I was paranoid. That's when she started lying more about her visits to the doctor, saying she was just getting checkups, routine stuff. But I could sense something was different. She seemed nervous when she talked about the doctor, and her stories about going for routine tests didn't add up anymore. That's when I decided to follow her on one of her visits. Nothing crazy. I just wanted to see if she was really telling the truth. I hung back around the corner of the clinic, pretending I was waiting for a friend. I saw her go in, and then a man followed her inside. At first, I thought they knew each other, maybe colleagues, nothing unusual. But then I saw them come out, and she was smiling, that fake, too pleased with herself kind of smile. The guy looked over his shoulder, and I realized it wasn't just a friendly chat. The way they looked at each other, it was obvious this wasn't just a medical appointment. I was stunned. My stomach dropped hard. I watched them get into a car, and that's when I got the courage to follow them. I kept my distance, and what I saw next made my blood boil. They went to a hotel, checked in, and from what I could see, they were definitely doing more than just talking. I didn't need to see it all to know they were fucking. There was no denying it. My wife, Lisa, was cheating on me with our family physician, Dr. Carter. It wasn't just that I caught her cheating. It was how confident she was, how casual she was about it. Like she thought she could get away with it forever. That's when all the pieces started falling into place. I had trusted her, spent years building a life together, and she was out there doing that, with him. It made me feel sick. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I realized I had to do something, but I didn't know what yet. All I knew is that I couldn't let her get away with this. Not after everything. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't focus at work, and every time I looked at her, I saw a stranger. I kept replaying what I saw over and over, trying to understand how she could lie so effortlessly about her visits, about everything. Lisa always had a way of making herself look like the victim, complaining about how stressful her job was, how she needed me time, and how I was just too paranoid. But now I saw her for what she really was. A bitchy, manipulative woman who thought she could cheat on me and get away with it. I started noticing things I'd ignored before: text messages hidden in the trash, her phone calls at odd hours, her sudden interest in hiding her social media activity. I even found a secret email account she'd set up to communicate with him. My mind kept racing. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't want to do it blindly. I needed proof, and more importantly, I needed a plan. That night, I decided I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I sat her down after the kids went to bed. I looked her straight in the eyes and asked her if she was cheating on me. The moment the words left my mouth, her face twisted into a glare. She sat there, arms crossed, her voice dripping with disdain as she told me I was crazy, that I was just paranoid again, and that I was ruining everything with my accusations. She called me insecure, jealous, and said I was just imagining things. But I knew better. I had the evidence now, and I refused to be played for a fool anymore. She tried to deny everything, but I wasn't buying her bullshit. I told her I knew. About her visits to Dr. Carter, about how I followed her, and about the hotel. Her face turned red, and she started yelling that I was stalking her, that I was abusive for doing this, and that I was always accusing her of stuff she didn't do. She called me clingy and needy, as if that was supposed to make me feel guilty. But I wasn't feeling guilty, I was just sick. Sick of her lies, sick of her cheating, sick of feeling like I was living with a stranger. She finally broke down and admitted she'd been seeing him for months, said she did it because I was paying enough attention, that I was too busy with work and the kids, and that she needed something more exciting. She even had the nerve to claim she loved me, but just needed her affair because I was a bad husband. I just sat there, stunned, trying to process how someone I trusted so much could turn into this vindictive, selfish woman. I felt like my world was crumbling. That night I couldn't sleep. The betrayal cut so deep. I looked at her lying there, acting like nothing was wrong, and I realized I had to decide what I was going to do next. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The trust was broken beyond repair. But I also knew I wasn't going to let her crush me, not without a fight. The rage inside me kept building. I had to come up with a plan, something clever, something ruthless, something that would make her regret ever crossing me. The question was, what exactly? The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind was a mess. Anger, sadness, betrayal, all swirling together. I knew I had to act fast. The first thing I did was gather every piece of evidence I could find, screenshots of her secret emails, the hotel receipts, her phone records. I wanted everything in hand before I made my next move. I wasn't planning to confront her again just yet. I wanted to be in control of the situation. I spent the whole day researching how to handle this. I read dozen after dozen of stories about infidelity, how others had dealt with cheating spouses, what legal options I had, and most importantly, how to make her regret her actions. I decided I'd give her a taste of her own medicine. She thought she could cheat, lie, manipulate, and walk away without consequences. Not on my watch. That afternoon, I started planning my revenge. First, I contacted a private investigator. I didn't want her to suspect I was onto her, so I kept it low-key. I told him to follow her, get more proof, and find out if she was seeing anyone else. I wanted to know if Dr. Carter was just a one-time thing or if there were more guys involved. The investigator found out she'd been seeing several men, probably for months, and that she was still seeing Dr. Carter, even after the hotel incident. At the same time, I made a backup plan for myself. I contacted a lawyer. I didn't want to jump into anything impulsively, but I knew I had to prepare for the worst. If she wanted to keep up the affair and try to make this ugly, I'd be ready to fight for everything. My kids, my house, my dignity. I also decided I'd record every conversation I had with her from now on. If she lied again, I'd have proof. That evening, I sat her down again. I told her I knew everything, the emails, the hotel, the other men she'd been seeing. Her face twisted in anger, then she started crying and spinning some bullshit about how I was crazy and possessive, that she only cheated because I was never there for her. She said she's done with it, that she's going to leave, and that I was just making everything worse. I didn't buy it. I saw right through her lies. I told her I was done with the games. If she wanted to keep seeing other men, that was her choice, but she was going to lose her family over it. I felt a strange mixture of relief and disgust. Relief because I finally knew the truth, and disgust because I'd been so blind for so long. I had trusted her with my life, and she'd thrown it all away. I decided that I was going to make her regret ever crossing that line. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I had a strong feeling that the coming days would change everything. I was done being the naive husband. Now, I was going to be the one in control, and whatever revenge I had in mind, she'd never see it coming. Over the next few days, I kept my plans tight. I had the investigator gathering more dirt, photos, videos, everything I could use. Meanwhile, I kept her under close surveillance, just to confirm what I already knew. She was still seeing Dr. Carter, still sneaking around with other guys. It made me feel sick every time I saw her slip out late at night or get into some guy's car. It was like watching her destroy the life we built, and yet I didn't want to act impulsively. I needed to think this through to strike at the right moment. In the meantime, I also started turning her own words against her. She told me she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt us. I kept a record of every lie she told, every excuse she made. I even started recording our conversations, just in case I needed proof later. Every time she tried to gaslight me, I just played it back to her, made her realize how transparent she'd become. She got angrier, more bitter, but I kept my cool. I knew the moment was coming when I'd have enough leverage to finally confront her properly. One evening, she came home looking more desperate than usual. She was trying to act normal, acting like nothing had changed. I knew better. I decided it was time. I sat her down in the living room, my phone recording silently in my pocket. I looked her right in the eyes and told her that I knew everything about her affairs, her lies, her betrayal. Her face changed. She started to deny it again, but I interrupted her, showing her the evidence I had collected. I laid it all out: photos, emails, the hotel receipts, the texts from other men. I told her I wasn't going to let her ruin my life, that she was going to regret this for the rest of her days. Her reaction was priceless. She started hyperventilating, crying, screaming that I was crazy, that I was stalking her, that I had no right. She yelled about how I was controlling, how she needed freedom, and how I was abusive for catching her. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I told her that I was done playing nice, that she'd crossed a line and there was no going back. I warned her that if she didn't leave that night, I'd take legal action, file for divorce, and make sure she never got a dime. That's when she finally broke down completely, begging me to forgive her, saying she'd fix everything, but I was already done listening. That night she packed her bags and left. I stayed up thinking about everything: the betrayal, the lies, the fact that I'd been played for a fool. But I also felt a strange sense of relief. I'd finally taken control. I knew this wasn't over yet, but I'd won the first round. The revenge I had in mind was brewing, and she was going to regret ever crossing me. I could feel it in my bones. The next step was to make her see that her actions had consequences, and I was the one holding all the cards now. I was tired of being the victim. This was my turn to be in charge. The aftermath hit me harder than I expected. She was gone, her bags packed, and her car disappeared from the driveway, but the silence was deafening. For days, I felt like I was walking through a fog, trying to process everything that happened. The house felt emptier than it ever had, even with all her stuff still in it. I'd catch myself staring at her side of the bed, thinking about all the lies she told, all the times I was blinded by her charm and her bitchy attitude that I thought was just her personality. Now, it all just seemed like a mask slipping away. The kids didn't quite understand what was going on at first, but they sensed something was wrong. I kept it together for them, but inside I was a mess. I knew I had to be strong for their sake mostly. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd thrown it all away for some cheap sex with Dr. Carter and whoever else she was sneaking around with. The thought made my stomach turn every time I looked at her empty side of the closet. I started to get calls from her friends, some sympathetic, some angry, telling me how she's not herself, or she's just confused, or she'll come back. Honestly, I didn't want her back, not like that. I wanted to make sure she knew exactly what she lost and why. That's when I decided to take a more calculated approach. I had the evidence, the recordings, the photos. Now it was time to make her regret ever messing with my life. I contacted my lawyer again. I wanted to file for divorce, but I also wanted to do it in a way that hit her where it hurt, financially, emotionally, and socially. I started gathering all the financial documents, bank statements, and anything that showed her reckless spending or hidden income. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to be the fool who gets played and then left with nothing. I also made plans to go no contact, to cut her off from the kids if she tried to manipulate them. I was done being the passive husband. I was going to be the one in control. One night, I finally sat down and drafted a detailed letter to her. Nothing emotional, just the facts. I told her I knew everything: her infidelity, her lies, her manipulation. I laid out the evidence, explaining that I was filing for divorce and that I was taking steps to protect my rights and my children. I told her she had burned every bridge she had with me and that I wouldn't be fooled again. I wanted her to understand that her actions had consequences, and I was done playing the nice guy. That night, as I sealed the letter, I felt a strange mix of relief and bitterness. I'd been betrayed on a level I never thought possible, but I also felt stronger. I knew I had the upper hand now. The revenge I'd been planning was almost complete. She thought she could cheat and lie her way out of everything, but she was wrong. The truth always comes out, and now I was the one holding all the cards. Whatever happens next, I knew I'd come out better for it. I just had to stay focused and keep moving forward. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal meetings, phone calls, and silent evenings filled with reflection. I went through every emotion: anger, relief, a strange sense of liberation. It was over, and somehow I felt lighter, like I'd taken control of a situation I once felt helpless in. Seeing her leave that night was the beginning of the end, but also the start of a new chapter I never wanted to face. Still, I knew one thing: I'd come out of this stronger. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I refused to let her betrayal define me. The divorce process was messy, as expected. She tried to manipulate the situation, spinning stories about how I was abusive and controlling, but I had the evidence. I knew she was lying, and I made sure the court saw it all. In the end, I got full custody of the kids, full control of the house, and a clean break from her chaos. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my life and protecting what mattered most: my children and my sanity. Looking back, I learned some hard lessons. Trust is fragile, and it can be shattered in an instant. Never ignore the small signs of trouble, because they often hide the bigger problems. And most importantly, never let anyone, no matter how charming or bitchy they seem, take advantage of you. I was naive, but I'm not anymore. I learned to be cautious, to listen to my instincts, and to stand up for myself. That woman thought she could cheat and lie her way through life, but in the end, she got what she deserved. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted justice. Justice for my broken heart, my shattered trust, and my dignity. I've moved on, and I'm finally starting to heal. The scars will always be there, but they remind me of what I survived and how I refuse to be a victim forever. So if there's anything I want people to take away from this, it's that betrayal hurts, but it also teaches you who you really are. Never let anyone make you feel less than you are. Stand up, fight back, and don't be afraid to take control of your life, even if it means breaking everything to start over. Because in the end, the only person who truly has your back is yourself.